Okay, this says I'm live. Good morning, YouTube. I want to talk about the term definition rape culture, and I was watching the Steven Crowder's rape culture video, and it brought up an interesting point about rape culture, or saying, you know, show me, evidence for rape culture. Um, I would tend to have to agree with his view about it. I mean, because there's laws, on rape. There's rape that does happen. I'm sure there's, depending on how you're raised, um, if you should or should not come forward with sexual abuse, molestation, rape, sexual harassment. All those things can be, you know, ignored by the victim if they're not raised to um, turn in those types of things, to deal with rape or sexual abuse and molestation. And I'm sure, there's a percent of people that do get away with stuff like that. But to suggest that rape culture means that we live in a culture that is rape culture, where I disagree with it is because you can, regardless of what you do or do not know, or how you were or were not raised, does not mean you can't come forward to the authorities and press charges. Granted that the laws are not that great for victims, especially what my deal is with the laws is laws are not that great for you victims who are victims of molestation. Um, Take for example, it seems like there may be stiffer penalties for things that have nothing to do with rape. And also, molestation, victims of that, it's not dealt with harshly at all, or very fair enough. Because you look at the Catholic priest, all the kids that are messed with from the Catholic priest, or you look in Hollywood, you have all the victims of, the people who, make movies, have the roles going, and they pick who they want in their movies, and, the parents have their kids and all these different types of movies. And, some of these kids, get messed with. Where are they supposed to go to? I mean, if they're not raised to go to the proper authorities, or later on in life, and they have this issue that's an ongoing issue that they have to deal with internally, yeah, it's screwed up, it's effed up, um, and nobody wants to say that that's the victim's fault, because they're a victim still. That's not evidence of living in a rape culture. um, that's evidence of the parents being neglectful of the child and the child's needs. If you're going to be honest about your argument, you would actually use logical, type of processing with your brain. Um, I mean, I might not be no fucking scholar, to say the least, but not to get too insulting, but I mean, if you're going to suggest that our culture in the U.S. is a rape culture, no. My mind hasn't been convinced. Does sexual harassment, rape, like forced sex, sexual harassment, molestation. Do those things happen, or do those things occur? Yeah, yeah, they do. But to say our culture is like pro for that thing going on and just sweeping it under the rug and hiding the evidence and being pro that what's happening is absurd. Um, it's as absurd as this, as the lady who came out Ford, 30, 35 years, 36 years. I mean, I've heard different amount of years. She doesn't remember specific details like where was that, um, you know, all kinds of different details that are very important for a claim, a case like that. I mean, after that much time, I'm sure it'd be difficult to remember. And I'm not saying that something like that didn't happen, to her as a victim. If she says what she says, claims what she says is true. But there's no reason to, you know, um, there's no reason to put somebody in prison for the crime that she's claiming that he committed, or keep him from getting a job for a crime that she's saying he committed. When she's having trouble with her issue of memory, even in, like, if you took what she was saying and you put it in court with him in court and was to try to charge him with those same charges even 35 years later, give or take, then I don't think they would hold up very well. I mean, for one, it would help if you had in rape is, physically, sexually against her will. Rape is not what she's claiming happened. She's claiming sexual assault of, like, she was grinded on. The drunk person tried to take her clothes off. There was somebody's hand was over her mouth. She was very scared. I understand that could be a scary situation, especially for a female. Um, but the whole thing comes into question when you got, like, uh, a lot of money in a GoFundMe, and I literally brought this up in a conversation uh, online to somebody, and then their response was, "Well, it's not like she's taking the money." I mean, yeah, you could say that, I guess, but I mean, if she does take the money, is she gonna just let it sit there? I mean, after all this dies down, she's gonna let all that money sit there, and she's not gonna, like, she's not gonna use it. I mean, what do either one of these two people need all of that money for? I mean, she's the victim, yeah, victim, but she's claiming a specific person is the one who did this thing that she's claiming he did. He's saying no. If he's saying that, maybe it's possible that she was a victim, but he's saying it wasn't him, and she's saying it was. It kind of reminds me of, like, when my kids are fighting and arguing, and something happens, and then one says one thing, and the other child says the other thing, and it wouldn't be fair to punish both of them for that thing, because you really don't know, or you're not sure which one's telling the truth about the thing that they're arguing about. We don't know enough information or facts to actually know if, for 100% detail, what she's saying is true. Now, if that was in a court of law and you had a jury that was trying to decide this just based on the things that were said, it would have to be, not guilty, because within a reasonable doubt. There's no way to prove what she said actually happened or was true. I mean, that would be awful. I mean, because, something did, I would assume something did happen because of how emotional she is, but you can't base everything off of because somebody's in an emotional state. People act differently emotionally wise to different things that they've been through. While I was homeless, there's no reason for anybody to believe me when I say this. When I was homeless, I had a friend of mine who he knew that he knew I had some money. I didn't know he was addicted to drugs, and held a knife, like a big butcher knife, to my throat. And that affects me. It still affects me to this day. I always stress out, worry, or have really bad anxiety. I can't go to a lot of places a lot of the time because of something like that's happened to me. I can't go to things that I probably would enjoy or like to go to, but because of that one situation that's happened, I can't go to things that would like to go to. Not just that, but there was also another claim somebody brought up on the video I was watching. This guy was saying that it's not a good idea for any women to be walking alone, or men or women, but he was suggesting that it would be worse for females. But that's not necessarily true either, because if you go somewhere, you are taking a chance of being assaulted or attacked or any of those things, whether you're male or female, can happen to anybody. So I mean, but to get back onto the topic of rape culture, I'm not buying that we live in a rape culture. Now, maybe if we were talking about like a Middle Eastern state, Middle Eastern country, then, and depending on which one you're wanting to argue for or against, I'm sure you could argue that point about Middle Eastern countries, or should even in the UK, where they have Muslim grooming gangs going around, looking for young non-Muslim women, and then them sweeping it under the rug as if it doesn't exist. That would be an example of rape culture. Like if you have groups of Christians or any other groups, Mormons, whatever, going around looking for females that did not follow their religion, and forcibly grooming them, forcibly raping them because they did not follow their religion, their God, then you could say for a fact that the United States was, a rape culture. You can't really say that, because they don't go around doing that. They don't go around saying, well, because you don't follow the Christian God, or because you don't follow the Jewish God, or the Muslim God, here in America, well, our group is going to rape you for not following our particular God. None of that that stuff does not happen here. This rape culture. There's not a rape culture that's like being claimed from these feminists. Like they're saying that there is, but I'm not convinced of that. Now, what I will disagree with, like I was watching one of Crowder's videos about that, and What I will disagree on him with is when he's talking about abortion. I disagree with him on the video where he's talking about changing my mind about abortion because I don't agree with the facts that the government should be able to tell women if they can or cannot have an abortion. To me, that should be the woman's choice to be able to have an abortion and or not have an abortion. I'd rather things like that be safer for females and not have to go to some, you know, seedy medical operation to do it like underground. Rather, it legally be done near a hospital building, in a building near a hospital where, if they do have that done, then they're able to get medical attention if something goes bad. And then I think in a lot of states, a lot of these abortion clinics, they put up new regulations where they have to make it the size of it bigger, a little bigger. They have to um, they have to be near hospitals. I think more often uh, than what it was before. Like they've changed a lot of uh, laws or rules about it, and it makes it more difficult. Um, I would see that making some places shut down because they don't have the funds to do that, which is, I mean, and I'll explain my position on it. It's sad to see that happening, because we have 7 billion people on the planet. 7 billion, like over 7 billion. Um, if there was only like 500,000 people, like if there's like only like a 500,000, million, hundred, or it at the least 1 billion, that would seem like a low amount compared to what we have now. But there's so many people populated on this planet. Um, I just I just can't agree with not letting women have the right to be able to make that decision to have an abortion, because the cutoff for whenever the laws are cutting off the time period to not be able to have an abortion is, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 3 months, something around there, like before the main stuff starts developing, like heartbeat, lungs, brain, breathing, all those things together. I think they cut it off right before all those things correlate, as in together. After that, I'm not for abortion if it's like all those things are, what forms an actual baby, if they're sustainable outside of the womb. And the only other time I would say that I would be okay with that before or after, is if it's rape, if it's from rape. I don't think you should force a woman to have somebody's baby if it's from being raped. I don't think you should force somebody to have the baby for medical reasons. Like, say, the woman is going to physically die if she doesn't have an abortion, either before or after. I think they should be able to, you know, take care of themselves, because without the mother or without the woman, there would never be any babies or babies in the future if she was dead. There'd be nobody taking care of. I mean, yeah, there would be somebody else taking care of that baby, but the point is that the person who had the baby would be dead if they weren't allowed to have an abortion, if that was going to cause them to die. That would just make no sense. You let the woman have the operation that they need, so they would be able to live a longer life. You don't sentence the mother to death or the woman to death that wants to be a mother later on, possibly, because you just disagree morally. That's my stance, like on abortion. Is I think women should be able to make those their own choices. And I have to change my hats because I'm about to go into gun rights. Okay. Now, I am not a believer, okay? But I don't care if you are, but just hear me out, is what I'm saying is, if you're an American, you understand Americans, they've always had, their gun rights. Some states, they're not so progressive with gun rights. I just went from abortion to gun rights. Well, I started with the, what do they call it, rape culture? I don't believe we have that here, but, we went from that to abortion. Now I'm going to go to what my views and stances are. Gun rights is Americans have had that for a long time. There's so much guns spread out in the U.S. I mean, you could probably implement plans like buyback plans, but to take away everyone's guns would be just idiotic. It would be moronic. Because you're taking away Americans, like Americans' guns. Not the majority of these Americans that you want to take their guns away are the majority of people who will be saving your fucking ass if some bullshit went down. Like, say some other fucking country comes to invade our country, those are the people who are going to be saving your ass. Like, especially if you're like one of these weird far liberal leftists that are just like off the hinges, really weird, like that karate roundhouse kick purple blue hair boy, soy boy that works in a barbershop. Yeah, your ass would be saved by these guys that you people like to call gun-toting, mentally disabled Americans. I don't think it's fair or right to say that about Americans that have gun rights, because they people who have guns, they have some kind of training. They've had some experience with guns before in the past growing up, or they go to like the range and learn how to fire guns. There's nothing wrong with somebody owning a gun if they're going to be responsible. The issue or problem is if you take those people's guns away and you make us become more like the UK in that sense, and you still have all these criminals that still have guns, then you're not giving Americans ways to protect themselves from people who generally want to do you harm and attack you or rob you, steal your shit. But you're wanting to take Americans' guns that just want to protect their property and their things. If you go to somebody's property, somebody's house, and you break in, and the intention of that person is to, well, if these people fight back, I'm just going to mess them up with my gun or knife, whatever they're carrying. And how is that right, or how is it even fair? This person worked hard for everything they've gotten. I know I've worked hard for everything I've gotten. Everything that I've gotten, I've worked hard for. I wouldn't want some asshole just fucking breaking into my home and just stealing all my shit I've worked many years just to get. I didn't have I don't have family buying me my shit. I buy my own shit. It took me many years to buy all the shit I have. I didn't even have a car until like about maybe a year ago. My wife has her car. I finally have my fucking car. We got our other shit not paid for by anybody but us. Now, I would be very pissed off, just like a lot of Americans would be, if all their fucking things were taken away from them because they couldn't defend their property or their home or their families. You know, I guess you could say, you could make an argument saying that you can it, that you're not able to protect your home, and that's not true. You can protect your home with firearms. There's plenty of people who live around here who have firearms that will use their firearms if you break onto their property. I mean, if you're not breaking any laws and you shouldn't be on that person's property, then and you're going on the property anyways, even though there's no trespassing, they have signs up, stay the hell off my property, then you might be asking for it. I'm just saying, it's like protesting in the middle of the highway. If you're protesting in the middle of the highway and you see traffic and your dumbass is still going to stand in the middle of the highway, that's not, it's not being racist or whatever. It's just, you're being a retard. That, like that saying from Tropic Thunder, you're a full retard. You never go full retarded. That actor is so fucking good. It's funny too. God damn it! I hate when I can't think of this specific name or a thing. Whenever Robert Downey Jr. I think that's his name. I think that's Robert Downey Jr. Yeah. But yeah, those are my stances. I mean, and I'm not even sure what I would say politically leaning, where I would be on the scale. I mean, I've took one of those deals before with putting down with what my views are, and it was saying that I was kind of center, and I think it said to the little to the left. I think I'm not even sure, but what my views are on a few of the main ones. I think everybody should be able to have the same rights, the same freedoms and rights, and speech, and all that good stuff. I think people should be able to have abortions, have guns. Fuck, give the women a free small little pink cute handgun if they have like an abortion. Give them a handgun to protect themselves. That way, these feminists can not bitch about women not being able to protect themselves. I mean, if all of these rapes are being underreported, and we are apparently, by their standards, living in a rape culture, that is completely ridiculous. This is why a lot of people laugh at really out there feminists, is they want to say rape or sexual assault, and whenever they know people think if you say sexual assault or rape, either one of those two things, that they're thinking of like forced sex, like holding you down and forcing you to have sex with that person. Like, they know that's what people think of when they think of sexual assault and rape. Like, if you're going to say specifically what that thing is you're talking about, then that would be nice. Not just jumble it up into one term and then assume everyone knows what the fuck you're talking about, because not everybody knows what the fuck you're talking about when you just want to put it all in a fucking one word that everybody jumps to that conclusion of what they think it means. Like that Kavanaugh trial. Whenever I heard about it, when I first heard about it, I assumed the woman had been raped for a good so many days until I heard her speaking about it, and they were talking about it on the media. on the internet, and she's talking about being uh, grinded on and a hand forced over her mouth, and as that can be traumatizing, I'm sure. That's not the same thing as what people think of whenever they hear sexual assault or rape. I mean, yeah, I guess that does fall under sexual assault, but saying it's the same thing as forced sex, rape, is insulting to actual rape victims, people who have been fucking raped. It's very insulting to actual victims. So the reason why people are dumbfounded at how stupid it is, that's why they're dumbfounded at how stupid it is. Because she was assaulted, sexually assaulted, and that's kind of misleading. I mean, because yeah, she was grinded and felt up, all that, but that is not the same thing as somebody shoving their penis inside of you. It's not the same thing. Not the same thing. Rape, forced sex, rape. It's not the same thing. So if you use those two words in the argument or when you bring it up, yeah, you're going to have a lot of confused people who are pissed off or angry about it, because that's not the same thing. You're being like dishonest with what you're claiming or saying. That's why not too many people take her seriously. If you want people to take you seriously, then mean what the fuck you say and fucking say what the fuck you mean. Not this fucking bullshit fucking speak of, I'm going to speak in code with these new fucking terms and definitions and change words around just so I can confuse everybody and nobody will know what I'm talking about, and then I can just win an argument because my feelings. I mean, that's how it comes off. That's how the fuck it comes off. That's honestly what how a lot of people see it as. I'm not saying that um, she's wrong for coming forward. And that also plays into it too. It's just odd that she waited 35 fucking years about being felt up and grinded on. 35 years, she was saying she didn't want to be outed. She didn't want to be embarrassed. She didn't want to embarrass herself or her family. Um, Holes in her memory about really specific details that you have to go through. Like if you turn that type of thing in, especially rape victims, actual, evidence like rape victims, if you go to a hospital and tell them that you were raped, and then they use swabs and all whatever to take samples to get DNA evidence and to show who raped you, because they have the DNA evidence. People have been exonerated for being falsely accused of rape from DNA evidence. And then somebody said you should, there's been a lot of people who said you should always believe her. No, I have good examples of why you should not always believe. I mean, I hear this shit all the time. You shouldn't always just believe just to believe. My ex tried saying that shit, and the only reason she tried saying that shit is because she cheated on me. I'll admit that. I am embarrassed about it, but my ex, one of my exes, had cheated on me. She cheated on me. Everybody said she left with the guy she cheated on me with from a party, and then came back way the fuck later and got dropped off. And whenever she came in, I asked her, said, what the hell's going on? And then she wouldn't talk about it, and then like put on this whole fucking show. It was fake. It was false. What she was saying did not happen. It was not true. She was falsely accusing a guy. Her mom told me how I could tell she was lying. She was showing all the signs of of lying. I was just really disappointed in her. I even asked the dude. I even talked to the dude. I said, "Look, this chick over here is saying that you sexually raped her. Did you sexually rape this female?" No. Looked me straight in the eye. No, did not happen. What happened, though, that he did say is that they had sex, but not rape. I mean, those those two things are different. They're not the same. If you consent to having sex, somebody's making moves, and you're getting intimate, physical, you're kissing, hugging on each other, whatever the fuck, you know, one thing leads to another, and there's no one saying no or stop. And if you had an issue with that or a problem with that, you would say that. None of that happened. They had sex. They were done. Came back home, and whenever she came back, um, after I confronted her with knowing how I know she lies and makes up things, because her mom explained how I could tell. The guy even admitted to the guy who she had messed around with, said they had sex, was not rape. They admitted, yes, it was just sex, not rape, from her own mouth. That's a good example of not believing just random bitches saying that they were raped. They're like, so many females. There's literally shit tons of females who say that they were raped. But how many percent of those females who said and claim that they are actually raped, but it falls under the line of sexual assault, their umbrella of sexual assault? That's not the same thing as like having forced sex. You're not having forced sex. That's what a lot of people associate as rape. That's why I say it's a false narrative whenever you say that it's rape culture. It's not a fucking rape culture. I mean, I haven't seen any real evidence of it. So, well, if anybody has a comment about what's in the topics that I was talking about, feel free to post what your comments are, and I will definitely try to get to them. Sometimes I check my comments, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how busy I am. I do work full time. I do have other things that go on, and I'll try to get back to them in a timely fashion. If you like, hit thumbs up for me. Subscribe, whatever floats your boat. And I appreciate your time if you watched this video or live stream, but video because it's recorded. I want to post it afterwards. And thank you for watching.